So the next thing that I wanted to discuss was this fight, this back and forth between Donald Trump and Thomas Massie. Now, just for those of you who haven't been paying attention to this, basically they're trying to do the debt ceiling deal, and the Republicans came out with this bill. Everyone's getting behind it so that we can avoid the disaster of the government shutting down. Yikes, that would be such a horrific event. And we go through this like every 6 months. It's every 3 months. It's all theatrics. It's all kabuki theater. But the bottom line is Trump and Elon and Doge. They're supposed to be all about reducing government spending. And what does this bill do? It increases government spending. It increases the debt, and if I'm not mistaken, it increases the deficit as well. So what are we doing here? And so Thomas Massie came out and said, "No, I'm not voting for this. I'm not going to vote with every other Republican just because I'm on Team Republican. I'm actually going to take a principled position here, and I'm going to vote no against this bill." Now, a lot of the Republicans come back and say, "Oh, you stupid idiot. Then you're just handing leverage over to the Democrats if you don't do X, Y, and Z." But then he's standing back and saying, "Look, at some point in time, we've got to draw the line in the sand. And every single time we get to one of these debt ceilings, you have the exact same argument. Like it's always, oh, well, we can't reduce deficits now because if we do this, if we reduce spending, then that's going to be giving the advantage to the Democrats. That's always the excuse. So we just kick the can down the road. And basically what you do is you talk like you're a fiscal hawk, but then your actions are basically Bernie Sanders. So it's like, which are we here, right? And there's a reason why the debt in the United States is 37 trillion. 37 trillion. Why? Because it's hard to cut spending. This is a great example as to why it's hard, because it sometimes puts you politically in a compromising position. But so it's like, do you choose? Okay, well, let's go ahead and give the Democrats this. Let's go ahead and increase the spending so we can decrease it later. That's the Republicans' argument. Or do you take the principled stance right now and then just hand some brownie points over to the Democrats for the next time? And but understanding that there's never going to be a point in time where it's easy to reduce spending, where it's easy to reduce the deficit when we have one of these debt ceiling debacles, right? So if you don't do it now, when? And you can say, oh, well, I promise I'm going to do it next time. Okay, well, that's what you've been saying for the last 20 years. And that's why we're at 37 trillion in debt. And that's why government spending, which I prefer to focus on, is 50% of GDP. That's how you get all these economic distortions. So it's like Trump wants to talk about lowering the deficits and lowering the spending and doing all these things. But at the end of the day, he really doesn't want to do what's necessary. And then he comes out and just attacks Thomas Massie. But let's go through it and you'll see what I'm talking about. And, I've said a lot of good things about Trump. I think there's a lot of things that he is doing that are definitely positive. But if he does something I don't like, I'm going to call him out. I'm going to be as objective as I possibly can. And most people don't like that. Most people want me to be tribal. Most people want me just to be on Team Trump. And whatever he does is just, sent down from the heavens. Or you want me to hate Donald Trump. And whatever he does, you want me to think it's just kind of an extension of Vladimir Putin or, even worse. So, and I don't play that game. So if that's you, don't watch the channel. Go somewhere else. So leaders have largely avoided criticizing Massie despite several no votes on GOP priorities. But by this week, President Trump had finally had enough, setting off a heated back and forth. And it wasn't really heated on Massie's part. It was more so on Trump's part. He said Thomas Massie is a grandstander, which, by the way, is the exact same thing that he called him when Thomas Massie voted against the CARES Act. I mean, this is not the first time that Trump has gone off on Thomas Massie, and we know who is on the right side of history with that one. The latest drama started Sunday night when Massie posted an explanation of why he was opposing Republican-led proposal known as a counting resolution, or CR. Such measures extend the previous year's spending levels until Congress can pass the annual bills that fund the government. So they extend it so you don't have to do one of these government shutdowns. And one thing I want to make very, very clear that most people don't realize, because a lot of the pushback that I get whenever I talk about the debt ceiling is, well, George, we have to pay. We can't just not pay the existing bondholders. Like the people that have treasuries, we can't literally default on the debt. I mean, you're the one that says that we need all of this debt just for collateral from the monetary system and yada, yada, yada. So if we're doing a cost benefit analysis, that's a cost that we have to remove from the equation. But what most people don't realize is just because you have a debt ceiling, it doesn't mean that you can't pay existing debt that's maturing, right? Because that doesn't increase the debt. So as an example, let's say that you owe $100 that's due tomorrow. Okay, so your debt is $100, but you've hit a debt ceiling. Okay, well, tomorrow, can you issue another $100 in debt? Absolutely, you can, as long as you're using that $100 to pay off the existing person that you owe $100 to, right? Because at the end of the day, your balance sheet, the liabilities, it's still $100. You didn't go to $101. You didn't go to $200. But what you can't do is you can't issue another $100 in debt to go ahead and spend it on Social Security or send it to Zelensky or however you want to spend it. See, but you can issue more debt as long as it's going to pay off existing debt. I know that because I did a few whiteboards on it when we went around this when we were dealing with this fiasco. I think it was the summer of, 2023 with Janet Yellen. And then she was drawing down the TGA and all these things. And so it's just, that's not an issue. The issue is the government shutdown. And I'm going to be a tough sell as to why that's a net negative. Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick break from the video to share with you a new investment strategy I've been using. Most of you know the cornerstone for my portfolio is physical gold. The problem is you always have a negative carry because you have storage fees. Same thing with silver. But I've actually found a way that you can be paid to own physical gold and silver. And here's the best part. You're not just paid an interest rate in fiat currency. You're paid an interest rate in more precious metals. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, oh, George, this sounds too good to be true. And it's exactly what I thought when I first heard about this. Here's the backstory. I get a lot of businesses that come to me and say, George, we want to sponsor your videos. Usually I turn them down because it's not really a good fit. But I had a company come to me the other day called Monetary Metals. And when they were walking me through what they do in their business model, I thought to myself, this is a complete no-brainer. In fact, it sounded so good, I set up an account myself, and it's been going extremely well. So I said, sure, sponsor a couple videos because this is a service that I think would be hugely beneficial to my audience. So here's how it works. You can go ahead and set up an account with them and fund it with your existing precious metals, or you can buy directly from them, usually a little less than 1% over spot. And right now, as we speak on the platform, there's opportunities to be paid about 4% interest. So again, this is not in fiat currency. They're paying you in additional precious metals. So if you deposit, let's say 100 ounces of gold with them, at the end of the year, you'll have 104 ounces of gold. So to join the thousands of investors, including yours truly, who are being paid to own physical gold and silver, you can go to monetary-metals.com/gammon. That's monetary-metals.com/gammon. So Thomas Massie, here's a quote from him. We were told the CR in December would get us to March when we would fight. Yeah, see, this is the point I was making. It's always kicking the can down the road. Well, we can't do it this time because of this, because it's always this excuse. But as long as we do it this time, then in the next 3 months, when the deadline comes around again, then we'll by golly, we're going to stand our ground. We're going to stand our ground. Absolutely. Come July, that's when we're going to draw that line in the sand, and we're all going to be standing with Thomas Massie. And it never, ever happens. And I want to be clear, the result here is this passed even without Thomas Massie's no vote. So, yay, the government didn't shut down. I guess we should be celebrating that. Or I guess you could celebrate the fact that the Democrats didn't get the leverage that maybe the Republicans, including Trump, were worried about. But now let's set that aside for a moment and focus on the way Trump approaches this. And this is look, you can disagree with Massie. Totally cool. We're all entitled to our opinion. But I don't know. When you're going at him like this, I just, for me, it puts a bad taste in my mouth. Just because you know that Massie is doing this based on principles. So even if you disagree with him, you've at least got to respect his character and his integrity because he knows he's going to get a political, excuse my French, but a political shitstorm because he's taking this position. So here's Trump's, or one of Trump's response here. Monday night, Trump launched his own threat comparing the Kentucky lawmaker to former GOP representative Liz Cheney. Like, okay, man. I mean, for me, that's like comparing Ron Paul to Liz Cheney. Like I don't, that's inexcusable in my book. The one-time Wyoming lawmaker lost her seat after voting to impeach Trump in 2021. Massie should be primaried, and I will lead the charge against him. So basically, what Trump is saying is because you did something I don't like, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you don't get reelected because I want to make sure that every one of the Republicans that I have to deal with is just a yes man. That I don't want anyone opposing anything that I want to do. I mean, this is why I say that Trump, I mean, I love some of the things that he's doing here. It's great. And on net balance, I definitely think he's a positive. Obviously better than Biden and Kamala and all these things. But he is an authoritarian. He really is. And now when you're a business leader, you need to be an authoritarian. I was an authoritarian, absolutely. When or like the way I run my business right now, if you want to call YouTube a business, it is definitely, I'm an authoritarian. It's my way or the highway. If you don't like it, hit the bricks. But I would not apply that same strategy to running an entire nation. That's you can have, you have to have that decentralization, and it's got to be the bottoms up, right? So collectively, if people are their own authoritarians, let's just say in their own family or their own business, as long as we have that competition, then that's going to be the check and balance here. But when you have the federal government, then it's a whole different ballgame. And even if you say, George, I get what you're saying, but I like Donald Trump's approach because I think the policies he is pushing are absolutely positive. And that's fine. I totally respect that position. The problem there is he is setting a precedence where the next person that comes after Trump is going to likely take the same approach. And you've conditioned people to be okay with that. And that puts us on a very slippery slope. So Massie fires back. Oh, here's Trump. The great people of Kentucky are going to be watching a very interesting primary in the not too distant future. It's just, come on, Trump. Let's take the high road here. I mean, you can criticize him without just being petty. Massie responds defiantly. The president is spending the day attacking me and Canada. His Tuesday X report or post read, referencing newly announced tariffs on the country's northern neighbor. The difference is Canada will eventually cave. So then Trump highlighted this at 1:23 a.m. Wednesday morning. He complained that Massie's actions were endangering Republicans' broader tax and border agenda, which the GOP hopes to pass later this year. So this is where, okay, now you're giving more power to the Democrats. So now I'm not going to be able to pass what he calls, quote, the great, big, beautiful bill. And see, this is where Trump's approach, and now I'm not talking about the personal attacks on Massie, but I'm talking about the kind of bull in a china shop approach, which, look, can be great for negotiating. Absolutely. And it definitely has its benefits, but it also has some drawbacks that we have to acknowledge. And I think one of the drawbacks is because you don't know what he says, or you don't know if what he is saying is total BS or why he's saying it. And he could be talking about a great, big, beautiful bill right now, but is that actually, is what you think is going to be included in that bill, is it actually going to be that, or is it going to be something completely different? I don't know, because he could change his mind tomorrow. And it creates, I guess, this uncertainty where I think a lot of even the people that are super, super, go MAGA are like, well, I mean, I didn't have as much confidence in the follow through, let's say, as I had maybe at the inauguration or over the last, let's just say 2 months. And by the way, is the bill going to be great, big, and beautiful? Show me the government regulate or the bill, the government law that's enacted that where I would use those adjectives to describe it. I don't know. Maybe this bill reduces regulations and all of these other things. My guess is it probably doesn't. My guess is maybe it lowers some taxes and secures the border and all these things and fights the Mexican cartel and all these other things that I would assume will likely increase the deficits even further. So maybe there's some good parts of it, probably some bad parts of it. I doubt it's going to be great, big, and beautiful. And again, to Massey's point, at some time you've got to draw the line, for heaven's sakes, because then it's just after the bill is passed, if it is, then we're going to run up against another debt ceiling, and it's going to be the exact same thing over again. And sure, it might lead to Republicans getting what they want, but at the end of the day, it's also going to lead to government spending being a larger and larger and larger and larger and larger component of GDP.